Alright, in this video I'll be talking about remote file inclusion, or RFI for short. Now, RFI occurs when you include a remote file, a shell, or a graphical interface for browsing remote files and running your own code on a server, right from the handbook. And a shell allows you basically to run your own code, upload your own files, to and basically allows you to gain more access to the machine, maybe install a backdoor. Um, basically allows you, from a shell, you can in essence get more control of the system, gain more privileges until you have full access, full control over a system. You have root access. You can even run exploits through a shell. Basically, with a shell, you can basically take over a whole system, and that's because of a couple PHP default settings. The enabled registered globals and allow URL f open. Now I'm running a WAMP on my system, and I have both of these enabled, and I'll be showing you an example of a RFI vulnerability. Um, as of PHP 6.0, registered globals has been depreciated and removed, so it's getting a bit more secure. Now, the majority of servers nowadays are still running older versions of PHP, so there's many vulnerable websites out there, and many websites are running old versions of web applications which allow this kind of attack. So let's go ahead and look at an example. Now I found a vulnerability on BugTrack, and basically this is for the content management system Galabi, and basically this is the vulnerable URL I'll be taking advantage of. As you can see, it ends with evil URL. That's the inclusion of my shell. Alright, so once I have that installed, this is what it looks like. CMS Galabi, or however you like to pronounce it. And now that you have that installed, or the website I'll be doing the example against, you want to find a copy of the C99 .php shell. That's the example I used in my book, and you can easily find it by using the function int URL in Google and search for the c99.txt file. And there's a couple up here. As soon as you open it, as soon as you search for it, oh, maybe not this one. This one actually opens it. If you click this, I'll just show you. And here's a copy of the whole PHP shell code, or here's another copy. Basically, so go out there, find one, save it as .php, and you have the shell. You can also find ones already uploaded to a server and possibly take advantage of the server. So here's an example. Someone uploaded a shell. Oh, not this one. And basically managed to hack it. As you can see, hacked by Linux. He managed to put up the shell and deface probably the index file or the C99. Basically, he was able to hack the website just from the shell. That's one example. And an example of the shell already uploaded. And see, here safe mode is turned on, so you don't have that many possibilities. It's not as easy. But basically, here's just an example of what it looks like. You can execute codes, look for, find all HTTP password files. Basically, you select the option, it'll put the code together and execute it for you. You can find the kernel information, go through directories, make directories, go to files. Basically, you have a bunch of options here. There's a list of processes, HTTP access files. You can brute force FTP, PHP code, so you can self-remove this file. And basically, this is what a C99 shell looks like. Now, there's also, I didn't mention it in the handbook, but there's also another popular shell called R57.php. And I went ahead and searched for it here in URL R57.php. You can find a copy of that on the internet. through Google. Here's a copy of the code. I'll be using this as an example, as in my example for RFIs. So I'll be using this shell. It's also very popular. There's many of them. These are just one of the two most popular ones out there. So basically, once you have a shell and you've saved it to your computer as .php, you want to upload it to a web host, a server. You want to look for a server that doesn't really parse PHP files, so that basically you're not running it against your own server, if you know what I mean. So basically, webs.com, previously known as freewebs.com, has this perfect option where you upload it as .php. Since it doesn't have PHP support, it won't parse it. So you just have it displays the text, it displays the code, so you can pretty much insert it or include it in your target, and it'll parse it on the target server, and you have a shell up. So now let's look at the example. As you can see, this is the vulnerable URL for the Galabi content management system that I have uploaded here. So I'll go ahead and enter the URL, vulnerable URL, and for evil URL, I'll insert the shell that I uploaded to webs.com, r57.php, and go ahead and click enter, and it should insert it into the CMS. And bam, I'm in. Basically, I have a shell up. As you can see, it tells me that safe mode is off. That's excellent. The PHP version, MySQL, if it's on or not. If not, what maybe some other database is installed. Tells me the hard drive, how much free space I have, how much total there is, the operating system, the server, the user, the PWD. That means the current directory, which is CWAMP, www, basically the current directory. And then it lists the drives and the directories basically that are currently in. And you have a bunch of options here. You can execute commands for Windows, because this is a Windows machine. Basically, you can download files to the server, or you can send file to a remote FTP server, send file to email, show database structures. You can actually dump the database, pretty much download the whole database, if you know what the information. Sometimes to get the MySQL database information, you could basically, what someone will do is look for configuration files, config.php, and those usually have the username, the database name, and the password for the database. You can pretty much log in from the shell and dump the whole database. Once a hacker can include a shell into a server, the next step is to actually upload that shell to the server, so it's permanently there. So in case the owner of the server, the administrator, figures out the vulnerability and patches his web application, or if he fixes configuration file, PHP file, it won't keep the hacker from coming back, because it'll be already uploaded to the server. So usually the first step, once a hacker gains access, is to go ahead and upload the actual shell file, PHP file. As you can see, this one has a browse and upload option, or a download. Now, this is the R57 shell that I didn't mention in my handbook, but the one I did mention was the C99 shell. Now, this is what it looks like once it's uploaded to a server. Now, the reason why this C99 shell looks a lot different than the example I showed that I found on Google is because people like to take the original code and mess around with it, customize it for their own needs. So there's actually a bunch of different versions of the shells out there, made by different people. As you can see, this is by I don't know, but it's C99 Mad Shell version 2.1, the Madnet edition, and then there's This one is by Evil Coder. So basically, as you can see, there's different people have different needs, and they customize it for their own needs, or maybe they improve it. So you'll find lots of different versions of the similar shells out there. Um, since this is Windows Server, it lets you know it's a Windows machine. If safe mode is on or off. Usually, if it's off, you have a lot more privileges, and this is a lot more, looks a lot better and organized than the R57 shell. As you can see here, it's got basically displays all the current files in the directory. As you can see, the c99.php shell is highlighted. As soon as the hacker includes a shell into a server, he looks for the green files. These are permissions. If you have read and write permissions, you can upload to that server. So that's to that directory. So that's where the hacker would upload the actual shell. So he can browse around, look around, tools. There's a lot of options. You can make directories, search files. You can bind. This is where you can actually back connect to the actual server. So you can basically backdoor the server and connect to it whenever by opening up a port and connecting to it via Netcat, which is called the Swiss Army knife of hacking, since it's so useful, since you can do so much with it. Now, what the more inexperienced hackers would do usually the script kiddies, is get a shell up on the server and just deface the index file and just write, hacked by this person or this person, and just it makes them feel all elite and stuff. But what the more experienced people will do is hide the shell as best possible and install a backdoor through the shell and make so they have like access to it later on, if they ever decide to use the server for any reason, and they can possibly use the shell to help them gain more privileges and basically get root access, or if it's a Windows machine, system access, that's the highest access. Basically get full access to the machine so they can use it for future, maybe use it as proxy to other websites, to cover their attacks up, or if they want to spam through the server, or basically whatever reason they have. And so basically you can do a lot with a shell. Now as soon as you're done with it, there's a self remove option. You can click that and it'll remove itself from the server, so they'll never know you were actually there. So that's an introduction to shells. I highly recommend learning about them and learning about other features and all the possibilities. But before you can do that, you must first understand the system you have the shell up on. So if you have a Linux machine, you have to learn about the actual operating system, so that you know what you're doing, so that you know what the password file is, how you can actually extract it, what you can do with it. And that's what makes a good hacker and the difference between a script kiddie. So that's the shell. Have fun.